Welcome to week 11. In this week, we'll see how, although Rome had become the most powerful state in the Mediterranean world and had amassed an enormous empire of provinces throughout the Mediterranean, this expansion placed tremendous stress on the administration, the politics, the structure of Rome's city-republic form of government. And so this week, we're going to look at a series of challenges that the Republic faced that are ultimately going to lead to the end of the Republic and a change of government in Rome. Now, we remember that although Rome had this policy of defensive aggression, which we can see would ultimately lead to the creation of an empire, there was nothing in the structure of Roman government that gave Rome a blueprint for how to administer all of its new provinces. And Rome had no immediate intention of changing its government purely to accommodate the provinces that it had conquered. So Roman administration of the provinces was pretty minimal. You have proconsuls who govern provinces, and they have the power of imperium, the same as the consuls. They could issue and lead the armies that were stationed in the provinces, but their staff was fairly small. Really just a few diplomatic staff, a quaestor to handle the finances. And so mostly the overall structure of these provinces isn't changing very much. There's just a layer of Roman power and Roman military power over the top. And so this came with some challenges. It meant that the empire was kind of disjointed. There wasn't a whole lot of interaction between citizens of the provinces and the citizens of Rome. It was difficult to become a Roman citizen. Roman taxes were typically low, but they were collected in a way that often bred resentment, either tithing farmers of their crop or assessing tribute. And so the problem is that if you're tithing, allegedly that's going to fluctuate by only taking a percentage of what the farmers produce in good or bad yields, but it was also ripe for corruption, especially when you only have a small Roman staff. Easy for them all to be on the take. If you're assessing the amount of tax that a farmer should be paying each year, that means there's no flexibility if the farmer has a bad year. So there's some resentment in the provinces. There's a lack of Roman administration of the provinces. There's a lack of connection between the Romans and their provinces. The creation of the provinces led to other challenges that were related to the army. We're moving on to the next slide now. Soldiers were raised to fight in the Roman army from your typical Roman farmer. And the typical Roman farmer would leave his fields to fight for Rome for a season and then return in order to harvest the crops. And soldiers were required to be landowners by law. However, they're fighting further and further away from home. They're away from their farms for longer and longer. And oftentimes the farms are going under and going bankrupt while they're away. And so they're coming back and they're having to sell their lands because they can't farm them anymore because they haven't made enough money to make their tax burden. And so then we have this growing homeless population that come to the city of Rome looking for redress to their grievances. Oftentimes, they sell the land to wealthy landowners who are able to farm the land by making use of the growing slave population that is growing because of the number of captives taken in these conflicts. Roman slavery was often better than other types of slavery in other societies around the ancient Mediterranean. There was a clear path to freedom and citizenship. This was something that was unprecedented, but it was also challenging. And the conditions of Roman slavery could also be appalling. There were no rights that the slaves had recourse to, and there was frequent abuse. So you have this situation in which those who have sacrificed or been willing to sacrifice everything for Rome, these veterans from the war, now find themselves unable to purchase or to own land, while the wealthiest in this society are becoming more and more wealthy by taking advantage and exploiting cheap labor from non-Romans, who also themselves live in these very difficult conditions of slavery. A man who addressed this problem head-on in 133 was called Tiberius Gracchus. Tiberius Gracchus was from an aristocratic Roman family related to Scipio. He had already had a successful military career. He'd been the first over the wall to defeat the Carthaginians during the Third Punic War. Everything was laid out for him to have a successful political career. But instead, he took on this project of giving away public land to the poor in order to increase the number of Romans eligible to serve in the army and to solve the growing crisis of poverty in this society. And so you have this land that's theoretically public land, and Tiberius Gracchus wants to give it away to the poor of this society so you can increase the number of landowners, increase the wealth among these people. They're no longer reliant on the government in Rome, and at the same time, he is rewarding those who are serving in the army and strengthening the army. His program was nevertheless opposed by the senators who represent these very wealthy landlords in Roman society and had started to use this land as their own. And so Tiberius Gracchus is foiled in this effort and instead proposes another bill which is designed to limit the amount of land that an individual can hold. And so this is very consistent with changes and developments in Roman law that we've talked about a number of times in this class. That the Romans are adapting their government to support the plebeians and the poorer ones in this poorer people in this society. However, the senators persuade another tribune, to veto Tiberius's law. Remember that tribunes are representatives of the plebeians in the Senate. They have the ability to veto any law that they see as running counter to the plebeians' interests. But this guy has been paid off. And so the senators are able to keep their hands clean. They're able to say, well, it was a representative of the plebeians who decided that this was a bad idea, so we should probably respect and understand and go along with that. Tiberius then takes the step of firstly deposing this other tribune and then passing his law in the council of the plebeians without gaining the approval of the Senate, which was allowed in the constitution, but it was certainly the custom to gain Senate approval. And he asserted that he represented the people of Rome and could pass laws without the support of the Senate. Now it's got to the case that Tiberius is very much setting himself up as a tyrant, and his actions bear all the hallmarks of a tyrant. He's running roughshod over the Roman constitution in order to ram his laws through. Remember how important the rule of law is for the Romans. Now, for a growing number of Romans, Tiberius Gracchus' unconstitutional conduct is much more important than whatever the contents of the law are himself. And so Tiberius is able to ram the law through, but when he announces that he is going to run to be tribune again in order to secure its implementation, again violating the constitution, it was one step too far. On election day, there were riots, and Tiberius and 300 of his supporters were clubbed to death. This was a big deal. It was a big deal because it's one of the first times that you have this kind of internal civil violence within Rome. The tribunes were supposed to be especially protected. People swore oaths that they would defend the tribunes, that no senator should ever harm the tribunes. That wasn't as though the senators themselves had got their hands dirty here, but they were certainly consenting to what had happened. It shows that this system is breaking down. It shows that two competing agendas are emerging in Rome. There's a more conservative agenda, the agenda of the senators. They want to keep the status quo. There's a more populist agenda, which is the agenda of those like Tiberius Gracchus, who want to limit the power of the Senate, who want to increase the amount of land and resources available to the plebeians. And in the past, what had worked was that the plebeians respected the rule of law and working within the rule of law to achieve these changes, while the senators were open to making some changes in order to preserve order and consistency within the republic. And both of those concessions are broken down here. The populace aren't willing to abide by the rule of law, and the conservatives are not willing to make concessions. And so you can see how the scene is set, stage is set for further violence.